much-awaited political report by the president of the ANC, President Jacob Zuma. We will also, of course, be bringing you some of the organizational part of the organizational report, which will be read to the conference by the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Gwede Mantashe. Well, I'm not alone here in the studio. I am joined by Professor Susan Boyson, who is one of a member of our panel of analysts. Welcome, Susan.
Good morning. Thank you.
Well, also, of course, with us also is Ralph Mateka, who is also a member of our panel of analysts. Welcome to you too, Ralph, as well. Well, just very briefly, before we're going to bring the viewers up to speed with what has happened, with what happened yesterday, the decisions that were taken overnight, and what's going to happen today. But just from where you're sitting, just from speaking to some of the delegates and some of the leaders this morning, what's the vibe that you're getting there?
Yeah, there is a vibe of expectation, like we usually see in these conferences, but there's also uncertainty and recognition that internally things are really not that easy at this moment for the ANC. Of course, there's issue of policy resolutions, but policy is not what is being discussed. So acknowledging that policy issues on the table do not go very far, they're not very contentious, a few additions are to come. But the attention is really focusing on the internal context, and the word war is being bandied about. We do not just see it in media and headlines this morning, but delegates shouting just now, they were outside, they were chanting, the war is on, and they were proclaiming in favor of the incumbent. So there's a strong vibe about, and they tend to say that the uncertainties about accreditation, about the Constitutional Court ruling, they sort of sweep that under the carpet at this stage. And we have a sense that possibly that's what Julie House, the ANC top leadership, will try to do, to try to ensure that there are not disruptions from the floor. A la Polokwane.
We'll see whether indeed they will be able to do that successfully. Ralph, what are you picking up?
Yesterday when I came into the town, I drove past the Central University of Technology where I saw, delegations there. That is where they will be doing their accreditations in there, and I think that you can say at this point that the area is really covered with black and gold. And among some of the names that were coming out, we have heard the names of President Jacob Zuma coming out in the singing, and also one song I think was composed. I don't know, it was composed just on the scene there. I've heard people singing about President Jacob Zuma and Fikile Mbalula in one song, and I think that just shows the vibrancy here. But I think looking at the delegations, I think there is a tension, given how events have unfolded leading to this conference. Particularly, we have seen the court case where it impacts upon this, and I think also there is an element of insecurity in the eyes of the delegations. While some might have come with the idea that they're going to be confident here, you look at them, there is a greater sense of insecurity and uncertainty in this place.
I want to ask you to hold your thought right there, because we want to take you back to the events that happened yesterday, where there was a special meeting of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, which discussed that the outcome of that Constitutional Court ruling, which in the end the judges decided that the conference that the Free State held in Paris back, I think it was in June or July, I can't remember exactly, but that conference was in fact unlawful, which means that the leaders who were elected at that conference have no standing here, meaning that the Free State has no provincial executive representing them here, but a task team has of course been set up. That task team is going to ensure that in the next 90 or so days the Free State holds another legitimate and lawful conference, which will then elect a new leadership. However, the branches that are here representing the Free State, those are not affected. Those people will still vote. But we're going to bring you ANC leaders explaining this themselves, starting right now with Jeff Radebe, the head of policy. This is how he put it yesterday.
The first point that the National Executive wants to make is that as the ANC, we uphold the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. The Constitutional Court, as the apex court, is the final arbiter in disputes in our society including this one. We absolutely and unambiguously accept the decision of the Constitutional Court as final in this particular matter. As a result, the NEC has confirmed and is confirming that this Constitutional Court decision that the Provincial Conference was unlawful and invalid, and any decisions and resolutions that were taken at that conference are therefore null and void, including the election of that Provincial Executive Committee. As a consequence of that, all Free State delegates of the ANC to the National Conference who are attending on the basis that they are PEC of the province will not be allowed to attend this conference.
Well, a head of policy within the ANC, but also a member of the National Executive Committee of the governing party, the ANC, Jeff Radebe, explaining there what the ANC, the view that the ANC took on that. Because in reality, a lot of people were surprised when that court ruling came out, some of the pronouncements of by some leaders of the ANC that in fact, well, in any case, Jeff Radebe explaining there that the ANC would indeed abide by that decision of the court. What do you think made the about 10? Because one would have thought, Susan, that before any leader of the ANC said anything about the court ruling, they would have perhaps, at the very least, sought the opinion of legal experts.
Yes, indeed. That was kind of surprising that they came out to that. But I think there would be the idea that, yes, it's constitutional court. There is a certain binding factor about that. But I think the extent to which the PEC is being ruled, the line is being drawn, they are not affected. They are affected, and the branch delegates not affected. I think that was a position I took to try to keep the conference on track, because
confidence booster, so to speak.
Yes, because if you take the block of Free State delegates out, they're going to be trying to get their proxies to challenge it from the floor, and on the other hand, if there is ground for contestation there could even be for parts of this conference decisions. We hear that some delegates have been talking about that. So it is really very deft footwork on the NEC side to try to give confidence, yes, you are here, you're legitimate, but on the other side showing that they are giving an audience to the Constitutional Court. So I think they were really pushed to come out virtually immediately. Perhaps they had some instantaneous legal opinion on call on that. But it is very, very contentious terrain that they have to negotiate. And that's probably why we have been seeing much of the delays this morning. They probably had to talk about deals and get it through to constituencies.
Well, that is going to be my next question. But does it, I mean, having dealt with having clarified at the very least the Free State situation, does it necessarily mean that the problems are over, this conference is now going to continue as expected? Or are we going to see, as other people have speculated in the run-up to today, that there's several other provinces that are keen on actually raising the issue of credentials and thereby delaying things a bit?
I think that technically speaking, they're trying to thread the line very carefully, where they are saying that we abide by the decision of the Constitutional Court. They have to send a message that shows that they really heed what is said by the Constitutional Court. But at the same time, I think they're trying to draw the line where they're trying to protect the integrity or even the legitimacy of the conference. Because if you look at the numbers and how the proportion of representatives in the conference, the PEC makes around 10% of attendees throughout the entire conference. The branches constitute 90%, but that is just drawing the technical line, because we know coming to this conference that the PEC have been playing quite a substantive role in lobbying the leadership, and also in lobbying and to some extent also influencing how the branches were going to nominate. So now you have the Free State province that does not really have the leadership of the PEC. Symbolically, that is not really a good measure. You cannot manage that one. While technically, yes, they can go ahead and participate as the branches because they're being seen as being independent and having gone about their processes in a much relatively fairer way than it can be said about the PEC. That, I think, it can protect the legitimacy of this conference going forward.
But is it as literal and as simple as that, though? In other words, I mean, because you do have Ace Magashule, for example, who is the chairperson of the ANC in this province. There, I mean, all these leaders are there. The only difference, really, is that they will not be representing. Well, Ace Magashule is an exception because he is a member of the National Executive Committee. But the other leaders are physically here. So does it mean that necessarily that because they can no longer vote or participate as the PEC, they have no hold or they cannot speak to the Free State delegates and actually make sure that everything is as was discussed before they came here?
It's absolutely right. They retain a huge influence, like they have influenced much of the preceding processes, perhaps not officially.
Which, by the way, they continue to have. Because
Exactly,
remember,
yes.
the task team that has been elected to oversee the election over the next few months still has a lot of the current leadership, including
Exactly, and the task team comes with Lutuli House's sanction very strongly. And PECs link very closely to the regional executive committees, the RECs, and they have had a pivotal structuring role in how the branches have gone about. In some cases, they have been, perhaps not in that province, it's been widespread across the provinces. I think some provinces are just holding their breaths that their delegates don't come, or thankful their delegates didn't come with the same thing. It is a widespread thing, and PECs and RECs have a huge oversight function, organizational functions, in how the branches went about constituting their meetings and how they were, the details as to who was put forward as candidates for the branch delegates. So it's a huge filtering down influence. It's very interesting too, just to remember that the Constitutional Court judgment was on a elective conference in June this year in Paris, that conference that the Free State ANC had, that one. But in a way, many other processes, at least that are alleged to have taken place, untoward processes, have almost become a model, not just for the Free State's nomination conferences, but for several other provinces as well. It was a Wild West out there.
Okay, I want to briefly sort of clarify that, how it is that the Provincial Executive Committee has no representation here, and there's this process that we've been talking about, which is going to lead to the election of a new PEC for the Free State, and why it is that the branches themselves have not been affected by that decision. Well, Jeff Khadebe once again explains.
The ANC is a hierarchical structure from the branches to the highest level, and the branches to this conference do not need any mediation. They are represented directly into the national conference. That's why the Constitution is very clear that 90% of the delegates must be from the branches of the ANC. That process has been overseen in the main by the Electoral Commission of the ANC, even the PGCs that made the final nominations. So the status of Free State delegates outside those who were going to be coming as members of the PEC are not affected.
There you have it. So the delegates, as we've been saying all along, have not been affected, and that's because those people were directly elected by the branches themselves to come and represent them here. Whereas the Provincial Executive Committee that was elected in Paris back in June was elected at that conference, and it is that conference that has been found to have been unlawful. So there you go. That's where the distinction goes. But then coming back to does that now, with clearly the Free State has problems, and it's probably not the only province with problems. Does that mean, or are we seeing a possibility, as some people have speculated, that there are other provinces, including Limpopo and perhaps the Eastern Cape, that are keen to raise the issue of credentials a lot more forcefully. In other words, do you think that even the decision and how the ANC has since dealt with it is going to give impetus or give those provinces that were perhaps keen, even before the court ruling, to actually raise the issue of credentials here?
I mean, you know, there has been complaints around the process, the nomination processes, as to how the delegations were being nominated to come here. But with the court ruling, what this says is that the court therefore pronounces itself on this. What that means is that the court has there is a certain minimum expectations of adherence to procedure that should have happened there, or that is expected to happen at that level. While members of the ANC were complaining about this, they did not have the backing of the voice of the court. Now they have that backing of the voice of the court, and then they are heading towards this conference. And I think it's going to be very difficult for the chief administrator of the party, being the secretary general, to stop the floodgate of such kind of a complaint, given and particularly against the backdrop of the court ruling here. So I think there's going to be, I think, concerns being raised around the credentials a lot, and it's going to be amplified by this the court ruling. I'm also expecting to see attempts, maybe even after the conference has been held, that some members might even try to approach the court and even query that, because now the court said that we can listen to this matter. Not only can we listen to this matter, we can therefore pronounce if a process has been held properly or not. So that is going to be a floodgate that is going to be very difficult. I'm expecting to see delays around credentials, as there might be uninvited guests coming to this conference from within the party.
Now, given the fact that, I mean, the ANC has been on record repeatedly that it takes a dim view of people who take the party to court, one. And now, listening to what Jeff Radebe was saying there, but also having listened to what Gwede Mandashe has been said immediately after that court ruling, do you believe that genuinely the ANC now believes that perhaps even if there may be nothing wrong, certainly from where they sit, about the processes that they've held, that certain people believe those processes were not fair, that perhaps people should be listened to now or beyond this point, more so than ever before? In other words, do you think that they would have gotten, do you think the ANC would have gotten the message that even if they themselves may believe that there was nothing wrong with the processes, but justice must be seen to have been?
You know, I cannot actually see how the ANC can believe there was nothing wrong with some of the processes. Many places the processes were fine. In many other places, there were so many complaints about bogus members, about parallel branch meetings where supposedly legitimate persons who were supposed to have been in conference didn't get a chance to get elected. All 9 of the provinces actually had complaints. Complaints were quite widespread in Limpopo, in Northwest, in Free State. I think particularly in these 3, Eastern Cape as well. So in 4 of the 5 provinces, many complaints. The ANC, Lutuli House, Johannesburg, sent out task teams to go and resolve these issues. In some cases, they were resolved. In some cases, they got compliments for having resolved it. In quite a number of other cases, there was serious discontent left behind where the problems were pronounced to have been solved. But they really were not. Because if to solve them, those task teams would have had to turn around some of the decisions on delegates that have been taken. So there are deep organizational problems there that fed into a very vehement pro-incumbent campaign. And it was as if the Zuma camp wanted to come to this conference. It is in the bag. There's no contest. Possible opposition have been subdued, and that was not coming about.
Is it really something unheard of, or is it something unusual or strange that the incumbent has an advantage over? Isn't it a fact that it is for really the incumbent to lose an election? Isn't it? In other words, aren't we making a meal out of this? Perhaps way too.
Well, you know, I think that the situation favors the incumbent, And I think
But
that
the point I'm making is that don't situations always favor
exactly
the incumbent? In other words, it then becomes the incumbent who then doesn't do what
you will
they
have
should
to
be doing.
be an incredibly bad incumbent to really lose a confidence.
Okay, I don't know what you're saying
or to
about,
lose that
about-
kind of
I don't know what you're saying about Polokwane then.
Yeah, but no, but I mean, Polokwane is quite different circumstances where the then incumbent was seeking almost going for the third term in the party and all that. But under normal circumstances, it is expected that the incumbent will seek re-election for the second term. When it gets to the third, then it becomes extraordinary circumstances, I would say. So I think that, looking at the things, I mean, in principle, I've been looking at different media coverage and all that. I've not even seen the incumbent saying that I'm available for this re-election. But how strong is the idea that the incumbent is going to win? It is so strong that we have also even assumed that the incumbent is actually seeking re-election. What that says for me is that it cements exactly what you are saying, that it should be expected that the incumbent will be strong. But the main question here is about the procedure and the fairness that the party goes by. And I think, to going back to the question of the courts here, that how does the ANC take into the court doing that? The ANC is in a dilemma in this case. It happens to be a governing party. They cannot say outside their own party structures that we have the constitution that each and every citizen should abide by. But no, it doesn't work for us. We do not want the courts to tell us what to do within our own internal structures. So I think what they need to be doing is to really review and look into their own internal conflict resolution mechanism. This is not about the court telling them what to do. These are things, although the written judgment is going to come on Tuesday, which will be more elaborate and we'll be able to see the justification. I believe up to this far that this is about the ANC not living up to its own constitution, not someone else's constitution. And I think when it comes to that, the court can then say that you have your own constitution. What's the problem with you?
Oh, it's interesting. We are, of course, going to continue discussing this one. Just to bring you on board, the reason we are playing a bit to bring you what's happening inside, because, well, journalists were, of course, taken out to resolve some issues of numbers and so on. So we're still waiting for the proceedings on the other side in the plenary, that is to actually get a final word on what is going on there. Because once that is done, because a short while ago, before we this show went on air, a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, Tony Yengeni, asked the journalists to go out so that their numbers could be regulated, because the ANC had agreed on a certain with the media on a certain number of media representatives who should stay inside. So while that is being resolved, we're waiting for that to happen. For now, though, well, a lot has been said about the leadership contest, who is up against who and who belongs to what faction, and what they are bringing or may not be bringing to the party. What's wrong with this one as opposed to the other one? Well, this, of course, conference, of course, is not just about those leadership wrangles. It's also about policy. The policies that the ANC needs to adopt here, the policies that are, of course, going to influence virtually everything that it does as a governing party. Well, our political correspondent, Tammy Dixon, prepared this inset for us.
The ANC gathered at Galaga in Midrand in June this year. It crafted a raft of policy proposals which promised to lead this country into a second phase of the 1994 political transition. They ranged from land reform to economic transformation. With 18 years now in power, the ruling party is feeling the pressure of deepening poverty, growing unemployment and widening inequalities. But it complains that it is held back by the apartheid backlogs and compromises of the political negotiations in the early 90s that gave birth to the current democratic dispensation.
The first 18 years have been characterized as the first transition of primarily a political nature, given the priorities and the conditions at the time of the transition from apartheid and colonial oppression to a free and democratic society. Amongst underlying causes of the slow pace towards economic freedom is the fact that ahead of 1994 breakthrough, we went through a negotiations process at CODESA, which produced a negotiated settlement.
The ANC is troubled by the fact that the majority of black people are yet to benefit from the spoils of liberation as they remain excluded from mainstream economy.
We had to make certain compromises in the national interest, and these were absolutely necessary to be made. For an example, we had to be cautious about restructuring the economy in order to maintain economic stability and confidence at the time. Thus, the economic power relations of the apartheid era have in the main remained intact. The ownership of the economy is still primarily in the hands of white males, as it has always been.
A key document, therefore, expected to dominate this Congress is economic transformation, which calls for strong state involvement in the economy, including in the mineral sector. Others, including the ANC Youth League, are pushing for nationalization of mines.
One of the issues we need to be looking into is a strong state intervention in a variety of sectors. In respect of mining in particular, we have agreed that we've got to strengthen the state-owned company which has been set up.
With the ANC being a broad church with a multiplicity of different interests and agendas, it is particularly facing pressure from its labor ally, COSATU. It continues to push the ruling party, even at this Congress, to adopt left-leaning policies.
Things are not going well at the economic level. We're sitting with the time bomb, as we normally say, on youth unemployment, with unemployment levels higher than any other middle-income country that we should compare ourselves with. Income inequalities have worsened, poverty is still widespread. Everybody has come to this conference to say, no, but there has to be a serious change of mindset in relation to confronting that as a challenge.
Right.
Redistribution of assets, of wealth has not happened in a manner that would have envisaged through the Freedom Charter or the Reconstruction and Development Program. There's still too much domination of our economy by white males, as the president was saying in his opening address.
Right.
Things are not going well. We can't go on. We can't go on with the business as usual.
Also expected to be dominant in this Congress are policy discussions on land reform. Land is a burning issue that has troubled the ANC for the past 18 years it has been in power. Recognizing its poor record in redistributing the land, the policy conference recommended that the policy of willing seller, willing buyer must be scrapped. It also decided that where land has been acquired through unlawful means, it must be expropriated without compensation. It now falls on the shoulders of delegates in this Congress to make these recommendations official policy.
When we replace the willing buyer, willing seller principle with Section 25 of the Constitution, we exactly mean Section 25 of the Constitution, which says that land can be expropriated, but it must be with compensation. The Constitution allows expropriation, but it must be with compensation. How the compensation is determined is exactly between the owner and the government with a recourse to courts or to the legal system. Just and equitable expropriation and price. Expropriation Act should then be brought in line with the Constitution. So the Expropriation Act that we currently have is unconstitutional, and that act needs to be brought in line with the Constitution.
The Congress will also examine a range of proposals intended to renew the ANC. Having existed for 100 years and battling with a new generation of members who joined the party after its unbanning, the ANC wants to give itself a major makeover to deal with incompetence in its ranks and to cleanse its image as a party that protects corrupt members. The policy conference recommended, therefore, that members under investigation for crime should immediately step aside from public positions and no longer be able to use the innocent until proven guilty excuse.
In addition to the decision we took at the NGC that there should be integrity commissions at all levels, that ANC members and leaders who may be facing serious allegations which harm the image of the ANC, we need a new sense of agency. It can't be innocent until proven guilty. Protracted processes that the organization needs to be able to call a member immediately and then establish the truth immediately and be able to act immediately. And this is part of the new agency about the new phase.
The ANC Policy Conference also decided to reduce the size of the powerful National Executive Committee from 86 to 60 members. This to make the committee more efficient. The conference also recommended that in order to serve on the NEC, candidates must have been members of the ANC for over 10 years. Tammy Dixon, SABC News in Mangaung.
ANC's 53rd National Conference taking place in Mangaung here in the Free State province of South Africa. Delegates there singing and chanting, signaling the beginning of this much-awaited conference. Well, lots of interesting things to say, lots of issues on the table. The contest is on that man, those men you are seeing there, part of the leadership, the current leadership core of the ANC, but
they don't want to accept the mood.
Welcome back. You're watching a live broadcast of the ANC's 53rd National Conference taking place here in Mangaung in the Free State. Sincere apologies for that break in transmission. Our technicians are actually working on the problem to find out what actually happened there. But of course, this broadcast continues. The plenary is the delegates have assembled in the plenary hall. The plenary is expected to get underway any time from now. Earlier, what we knew was that the ANC, together with the media, were working out the numbers that they both agreed to, that a certain number of journalists would be allowed into the plenary. But by the time the proceedings, when the proceedings were about to get underway, it then turned out that the numbers were actually more than what had been agreed to. But of course, that in part was because the ANC was delaying in actually starting. Was supposed to start a good couple of hours ago, but the proceedings were delayed. So during the intervening period, a lot of journalists got into the hall and started mingling with the delegates and so on. But right now, though, we've been joined by Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, who is replacing Ralph Mateja, who was earlier. We did tell you earlier on that we are rotating our panel of experts here to bring you fresh and different perspectives of what is going on. Prof, welcome and thanks very much for joining us. Now, before we got cut off, Professor Boyson was we were talking about President Zuma conceding that some of the things that could have happened over the past 18 years did not happen, in part because the ANC was keen to maintain stability and therefore left a lot of things intact. And the question I was asking here at the time was whether, in fact, we can ascribe everything that hasn't happened, or everything that has happened, perhaps in a wrong way, to that. Can we really?
Well, I think there are many reasons why some things happened and others did not happen. It's a variety, it's a multiplicity of reasons. I mean, some things that were good were done, and they demanded that more good things should be done. I mean, you know, sometimes success is failure and failure is success. I mean, if you give people houses, the next thing they're going to ask you is where we're going to get the money for electricity. Where are the jobs? If you give them the ability to buy cars, the next thing they're saying, but where are the roads? You know, so some of the things that were not done are second generation things. You know, the first layout of things was done. Unfortunately, the older the administration, the latest administration has to carry the burden. Have got to take responsibility for all the omissions and commissions since 1994, and I think the Zuma administration has got to explain all of that to us. But you can't simply say that things did not happen for one reason only.
Well, I mean, he is going to make his position clear. He's going to give us his take on the things that have happened and the things that have not happened. That's what his political report, which he should be delivering as soon as the proceedings there get underway. But I want to ask you your opinion. Can we say, or can you say, that the ANC has done the best it could do?
In 18 years?
Yes.
No. In some ways it has, in many ways it hasn't. I think the fundamentals have been done correctly. We have all the fundamentals. We've got a functioning judiciary. We've got parliament. We've had elections without fail in the 18 years. But clearly the triple problems of unemployment, poverty and inequality could have been addressed better than we have seen happening. in this country. And I think the ANC has got to take responsibility for that. It's not good enough simply to say that, praise us for what we have done and give us more time for what we have not done. I think the patience of people is running out, and soon we will see more and more protests in this country unless there is a turnaround strategy for the country.
Prof?
Yes, indeed. There's so many that it could have been better under the ANC. And we see that in the acknowledgements of, for example, corruption, of opportunist cadres coming in for deployment and redeployment, and state civil servants that often do not bring that determination and dedication to actually implement the cliched, good policies but no good implementation. There cannot be good policy if there isn't good implementation. And very often, the civil service not receiving the necessary strong, determined push from political leadership has had a huge role in policy, perhaps sometimes sufficient policies, not going sufficiently far enough to make that definitive difference, even if it is second generation issues. That is what any incumbent government has to deal with. Needs are going to change, and people keep on demanding, sometimes keep on demanding more. But if we get to cases like Marikana was such a pivotal break moment that really showed this triad of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, how even so-called employed people could come with massive grievances that can relatively easily push a system that we are quite content with, that we're happy to congratulate ourselves with, out of sync, and that we do not see, also in terms of policy proposals that we see coming from the ANC, we do not see immediate sufficient answers to compensate for those deficits that have been shown graphically in the case of Marikana coming out of the proposals. We haven't seen the June proposals supplemented for proposed new resolutions to take the policy proposals further to ensure that Marikana doesn't become institutionalized.
If we accept, Prof, if we accept the cliche that good policy is but, which of course Professor Boyson there says you can't talk about that, sounds like it does indeed sound like a contradiction in terms when you thoroughly examine it. But let's take that. Let's say now, given how the ANC elects its leaders, do you think we'll ever get to a point, or we'll get to that point sooner, that is of leaders who can stand up and say, this is what I stand for. This is how I intend or I hope to implement the good policies that we have. This is how I'm going to drive people to implement these policies. Will we ever get there, given how the ANC has decided it wants to elect, is the way it wants to elect its leaders?
You're talking about the collective approach to problems.
Okay, let's start there. The collective approach, the whole thing that the ANC is a collective. I mean, South Africa people have been talking, especially over the past year, about leadership. Now, they want someone who's going to lead from the front, who's going to crack the whip, someone who's going to say, you're messing up here, let's deal with this here and now.
Yeah, look, I agree that there is a hunger out there for that kind of leadership. And I could even go as much further and say that there is a hunger for a different electoral system, perhaps, in the country. I think that in as much as people have been praying for the 4,500 delegates who are here, supporting them, giving them hints and so on, I think that there is also a kind of resentment in the nation that you have 4,500 people being given so much responsibility because their decisions really are going to affect all of us. So there's a hunger for that to change, I think, in the country. There's a hunger for a different electoral system, and maybe that debate ought to come back in the table. And the need for that kind of leader. But you know, the way I think about it is to think about the discussions that we have had in this country about generations. I have a sense that your Mutantes and your Zumas and others actually belong to the same generation. And I'm not just talking about their age, I'm talking about their experiences, I'm talking about their outlook. And perhaps we we need to deepen that discussion, the intergenerational discussion. If we will find that kind of leader that you are describing here, I'm beginning to think we might need to look for that leader out of a different generation. A generation of thinking, generation in terms of time also.
Well, we are, of course, going to interrogate these issues further. My guests here are Professor Tinyiko Maluleke as well as Professor Susan Boyce, and members of our esteemed panel of analysts who have been with this story for a good few years now, and who have brought us to where we are. Right now, though, we're going to cross over to Tammy Dixon, my colleague, our senior political correspondent, who is just outside the plenary where the proceedings are about to take off. We've seen in the footage you saw earlier that journalists have now been allowed in, and the National Executive Committee of the ANC is also on stage, which is perhaps the strongest signal yet that those proceedings are about to get underway any minute from now. We cross over to Tammy Dixon.
Vuyo sibambe ngasibini mhlekazi wami sikwamkeleke apha kule ndawo kanye lo mcimbi uza kuqhutyelwa khona apho the plenary nalapho khona i-delegates zingena khona sithetha nje. Welcome outside the plenary session of the ANC's 53rd Congress, where this watershed moment is going to evolve from here. Now, I can tell you that quite a lot of delegates have been able now to go through the scans, and they've been able to get inside the hall, which has been quite a very difficult task since this morning, like hundreds and hundreds of delegates forming long queues outside the entrance gate here, going through the scans slowly to make sure that all of them, they get seated inside the plenary wall. But I can tell you now that quite a significant amount of the expected delegates of the ANC have indeed taken their places inside the plenary wall, and there's quite a mood of excitement even inside. People are singing songs, you know, showing that they are very much ready for this much anticipated Congress to really begin to deliberate on very key issues that the ANC Congress is expected to examine over the next 4 or 5 days. And also I can tell you that I've seen quite a number of leaders of the ANC, not only just ordinary delegates coming from the branches all over the country, but I've also seen senior leaders of the African National Congress also making their way inside the plenary, which I think indicates that maybe any time from now the Congress is going to get underway. We do know that there have been quite a number of challenges coming to this Congress, which the ANC had to deal with in order to make sure that this Congress operates and runs very much smoothly. And one of those issues was, in fact, the issue of the delegates themselves. We do know that a number of provinces, the branches from a number of provinces have made a lot of complaints about their unhappiness, about the legitimacy of some of the delegates that have gone through here. And then one of the things that we're expecting to happen later today, after the Congress has been officially opened by the President of the ANC, the Honorable Mr. Jacob Zuma, is that the issue of the credentials report will then be adopted. Now, that's where we expect that quite a lot of debate is going to ensue within this plenary session, where delegates will have to engage with the credentials report, as will be tabled here, to express the view whether they agree with it or not, taking into account that quite a number of branches are not happy about some of the delegates who are here, saying that some of them are not legitimately representing branches here. There's some accusations about bogus delegates that may have been here. So all of that will be sorted out later today when that credentials report is presented, and that will determine, therefore, whether this Congress indeed has a legitimate status to stand with. And after that credentials report has been adopted, the danger of not adopting a credentials report is that even the political report of President Zuma that he is going to deliver here will not be able to be adopted, as well as the organizational report of the Secretary General. But also, more importantly, is that elections. As we know that this Congress is an elective Congress, and elections it's going to be very difficult for them to continue if that report is not adopted, because credentials really are about making sure that whoever is supposed to be here is indeed here, and whoever is currently here is legitimately here. So that's the biggest thing that we are waiting to see as to how is the ANC going to ensure that this credentials report about the delegates that are here is indeed adopted. And once that is done, then it's going to flow from there. The Congress will flow from there and until the last day of the Congress. So that's it so far from here. As we watch probably the last batch of delegates now coming through, as I can see, the scans are really now clearing up as delegates are continuing to trickle inside the plenary wall. Back to Vuyo in the studio.
Well, if you just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast of the 53rd conference of the ANC. This, of course, as Tami outlined to you earlier, being the elective conference of the governing party, the African National Congress. This is where the ANC will be electing its leaders, or re-electing the leaders it currently has. Well, you're seeing there the current deputy president of the party. On the other side, on the right, to the right, is the treasurer general of the party, Matthew Sposa, and in between them is Tenjiwe Mtinso, one of the people who are being touted for the position of Deputy Secretary General. That's if you go according to one of the two slates. Well, here in the studio, I do, of course, have Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, as well as Professor Susan Boyson, who are helping us unpack some of the issues that are going to be discussed as part of this elective conference of the ANC, because it is indeed not just about electing new leaders, but also adopting policies that the ANC hopes, or as Professor Maluleke said, on a wing and a prayer, that the ANC policies that the ANC praise will take this country forward. Well, one of the friends of the ANC had a message to pass as the ANC was celebrating its 100 years this year, but also preparing for this elective conference. And this man said, "Pay more attention to where you come from." That's the advice that Harry Belafonte
is known not to mince his words. On this occasion, we expected anything but.
My advice would be to the leaders of Africa, to those who aspire to the leadership of that great nation and that society, to pay more attention to where they had come from, to pay more attention about the process, to pay more attention about how it was that they achieved the goals of independence. The very people who were central to that process have been denied access to a lot that South Africa has to offer. I listen to the complaints, I listen to the pain. I still go to Soweto and to the townships, and I see the discomfort and the sense of loss by a lot of people there.
He also said it was important that the ANC remembered those who gave voice to the struggle through artistic and cultural expression, something he feels has fallen by the wayside.
I also see that culture and art, and much that helps so much to spread the gospel and the truth on what the South Africans are aspiring to, that now that the South African government rules, it has not stepped into the fray here and it has not made culture supreme. It has relegated culture to a rather second-class position in the society. It's so much about what South Africa and the ANC achieved was based upon what artists said and artists did.
At the United Nations, a global platform that gave voice to the movement for freedom, hosting the likes of O.R. Tambo and Miriam Makeba in the 60s.
I ask you and all the leaders of the world, would you act differently? Would you keep silent and do nothing if you were in our place? Would you not resist if you were allowed no rights in your own country because the color of your skin is different to that of the rulers? And if you were punished for even asking for equality? I appeal to you, and through you to all the countries of the world, to do everything you can to stop the coming tragedy.
And almost 50 years later, at a UN event to honor the ANC, words of praise.
The ANC is more than a political party. It is a movement and a tangible expression of a vision. The commitment and sacrifice its members led to the emancipation of a nation from racist colonial rule. The justness of its cause attracted support from around the world and from all races and religions. Its membership too reflects this broad approach.
And as we celebrate the heroes and heroines that got us here, many long departed, others still a blessing to have with us, we look up to see the fruits of their labor, tickled by a cool Big Apple winter breeze. Shervin Brycebees, SABC News, New York.
Comrades, delegates, and guests, and our friends from the international community.
Well, ANC Chairperson Baleka Mbete has just, of course, told the delegates to keep quiet because which is probably the clearest indication that proceedings are indeed going to get underway anytime from now. Let's cross over very quickly to Tammy Dixon, who is going to give us a brief of what's about to happen. Tammy.
Comrades, uma ninje engakangeni, uma esengena kuzoba njani? Comrades, let's welcome Comrade Jacob Zuma, our president. Comrades, let us ask the national chaplain to lead us in the interfaith prayers. Otata, nikumule izigqoko. The national chaplain and the team . Comrades, we are going to have a very orderly conference. I know that that's unanimous. Fundisi ubi.
May I request conference to be seated. May I request conference to please give us this solemn moment as we will be invoking the presence of Almighty as we begin this conference. We'll be having interfaith prayers from the various faiths. Comrade President, the theme of this opening prayer at this conference of the 100 years of our existence is, thus far, the Lord has helped us. If, Comrade President, I was allowed, I would give Mangaung a new theological name, and that name would be Ebenezer. Ebenezer simply means kuze kwala uNkulunkulu esisiza. For the 100 years of selfless struggle, the Lord has made us to keep our spirit high under God's guidance and leadership. God has helped us to uphold our revolutionary morality. This organization is under revolutionary morality, despite the warning about moral decay. This organization is based on revolutionary morality. We will be thanking God for offering all the people called ANC the pastoral care to all those who have been needy, all those who have fell on the way. We will remember them. We shall do so by inviting a prayer from the Hindu faith led by Pundit Trikamji.
Let us bow our heads and pray. Om Bhurvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Almighty Lord, you are the creator, you are the preserver, and you are the destroyer. You are also the giver of mercy. We ask you humbly to bless us, to guide us as we visualize, debate, and resolve at this conference the future of our country, South Africa. More importantly, Lord, we ask you to bless us with peace, with peace, with peace. Amen.
We invite from the Jewish faith the chief rabbi of the Jewish faith in this country, Rabbi Warren Goldstein.
I would like to bestow a blessing and to ask God Almighty to bless all of the delegates of the African National Congress and all its members, and indeed all South Africans, with the words of the following blessing which come from the Bible, from the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 28. May the words of this blessing be fulfilled for everybody. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your ground, and the fruit of your animals, the offspring of your cattle, and the flocks of your sheep and goats. Blessed shall be your fruit basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed shall be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. May Almighty God open up for you his storehouse of goodness, the heavens, to provide rain for your land in its time, and to bless all of your handiwork. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. May the Lord place you as a head and not as a tail. You shall be only above, and you shall not be below. May God bless you, and thank you.
We invite Maulana from the Muslim faith.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahi wa kafa, wassalatu wassalamu ala Nabi al-Mustafa, Muhammad Mustafa, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise be to the Lord of the entire universe, the most gracious, the most merciful, the owner of the day of judgment. You do we worship, and from you do we seek assistance. Guide us to the straight path, the path on those whom you have bestowed your blessings, and not the path of those who have earned your anger. Ameen. Ya Ilah al-Alameen, O Lord of this universe, we ask you that you bestow upon this conference your wisdom, that decisions may be taken with integrity and discipline in a peaceful manner for the benefit of this land and all those who live in it, so that there can be an eradication of poverty, and that our education can be the best in the world. And with your guidance, may that be a blessing upon us. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
We invite Dr. Fuzani from the Bantu Church of Christ to pray the Christian prayer.
Let's bow our heads and pray. God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, God of our prophets, God of our ancestors, we bow before you this afternoon on this important occasion which has attracted the attention of the whole world, the attention of the entire country. We invite your Holy Spirit to bless all the proceedings. We invite you, Lord, to give each and every one of us a purpose for coming here. Our purpose for coming here is to draw up a map that will take this organization through another 100 years, which, Lord, you've blessed it with. Thixo wezulu, Thixo ka-Abraham, ka-Isaka, ka-Yakobi, Thixo wokhokho bethu. Silapha ngale mini, singabantwana bakho, singumbutho wakho olawulayo, sizoguqa ezinyaweni zakho. Sikucela Thixo kwindawo ohleli kuyo enqabileyo, iliso lakho lijonge emhlabeni kumhlaba waseMangaung. Iliso lenkosi yethu Yesu Kristu lijonge emhlabeni. Sikucela Thixo sembathise ngomoya wakho ingcwele, usinike ubunye, usinike uxolo, usinike uthando lokwazi okokuba lo msebenzi sidibene ngawo ngumsebenzi wakho Thixo. Zezonke nezigqibo esizawuzithatha usinike ubulumko bakho Thixo ngoKristu inkosi yethu. Amen.
We then conclude with this interfaith prayer. Therefore, great Spirit of God, Spirit of liberation and transformation, we come to you through many traditions and call you by many names. Some call you Mvelingangi, some call you Kamada, some call you Mudimo, some call you Tito. You are the Supreme Lord. You are the Enlightened One. You are Jehovah. You are Allah. You are Echyech Asher Echyech. You are Ego Emi de I am. We come to you in the footsteps of Krishna, of Abraham, of Jesus, of Muhammad, peace be upon them all. Some hear you voice through the great philosophers. Others hear you speak through the concern of women, the children, and with those in need and vulnerable. Great Spirit, we praise you because what we called our struggle was your struggle. As we gather once more in this conference, we are conscious of the times when we have failed you. We have sometimes let greed, selfishness, and folly cloud our vision, have pride and laziness in our work, make us barriers to the transformation of our country. Grant us in this conference, grant us faith to believe in the ongoing transformation of South Africa as strongly as we believe in liberation. Grant us to believe that goodness is more powerful than badness. Grant us, Lord, wisdom to find and follow your way in our affairs, to add good sacrifice in our worship, character in our knowledge, integrity in our actions, and to understand that cohesive action is more effective than selfishness, to measure growth in the lives of poor and not the prophets. Grant us the patience to preserve until we find a common commitment to the unity of this organization. Grant us the wisdom to engage the policy proposals that come from all the people called ANC, that such decisions to be for the advancement of your people and improve the lives of South Africans. Lord, grant us courage to believe in our vision. Grant us to defeat the wrong acts against humanity by being good, to defeat lies by honesty, to conquer oppression by reconciliation, especially today as we celebrate the Day of Reconciliation in this country. Grant us the courage to go beyond colonial wisdom and chart a new course for African people. We thank you for the outgoing leadership that has served us during the past 5 years, with distinctions that we are able to come before you now and say, here is this conference under their leadership. We now pray for Tata Madiba, that you give him a speedy recovery, that he continues to be a blessing among all of us. We pray that you give these delegates a dependent discernment as they are to elect the new leadership. For the past 100 years, Lord, you have gave us, the great organization, a gift of leadership throughout the ages. We ask you now to continue doing so, even at this conference. Lord, bless our people. Lord, bless this conference. Lord, pour peace upon this conference. Lord, make sure that the vibrations and the vibrancy and excitement of this conference must not degenerate into an unbecoming conduct. But let this vibrancy be the vibrancy that will deliver the leaders of this organization and the leaders of South Africa. Lord, bless our people. Lord, bless this conference. Lord, bless Africa. Aum Shanti, Shalom, Salam Alaikum, Amen. Mako ben Shalom, Mako ben Lord bless you and stay blessed and have a wonderful and successful conference. Viva God!
Thank you very much to our national chaplain, Comrade President and the officials, members of the National Executive Committee, our international guests, our delegates from all the branches of the ANC from all over South Africa. May I yet again formally welcome you all to this 53rd National Conference, which is also our centenary conference of this great organization, the African National Congress. We were here in January celebrating the 100 years birthday. We are here today to yet again recommit ourselves to our people by focusing our attention on the policy deliberations that will lead our country into the second century of our lives and our commitment to the fight for transformation of society for the better. At this point, comrades, I would like to ask Comrade Bushi to step forward and assist us by leading in the singing of the national anthem. National anthem. Comrade Bushi.
Konsisigeleli Afrika malupaganyisu pondolwayo izwa imitandazo yetu konsisigelela ti
very much, Comrade Bushi and comrades, delegates and guests. Comrades, can we now move on to the adoption first of the conference program, and then I will move us to the rules of procedure, which start on page 7. But for a start, I'd like us to consider the adoption of the conference program. The conference program is from page 1 to page 3, and then we also have the guidelines, and we also have a further program that also indicates venues, commissions, and more information about when conference subdivides itself to commissions. I would like to have a motion for the adoption of the conference program, and I'm quite sure comrades have looked at it already. I see this comrade right across here. Yes, comrade. Akuna mic lapho. Can we have some help with the sound people? Sound people, please help us. There's a microphone over here. Ufuna ukuzala? Awukudanga musa. Ukude. Qabane uyavumelana ne-program. The comrade Ungubani uqhamuka kuphi, so that we know we can record that. Ayikho. Sound. The comrade is from KwaZulu-Natal. Your name is? Ricardo Mtembu from KwaZulu-Natal. Ibranch yakho qabani. Chris Hani branch. KwaDukuza region. The comrade moves for the adoption of the conference program. Is there a seconder? There are many seconders all over the place. Is there any objection to anything about the program? No objection. The program is so adopted. Now, comrades, we come to page 7, where we will ban. Comrades helping with sound, can we have some assistance with the mics? We cannot possibly do well with such a large gathering without sound. Yes, comrade, where are you? I'm not even seeing you. Ooh. Yes, comrade, come. Can the logistics people please help us by finding out what the problem is with the sound system and helping us to deal with whatever the problem is? Comrade Upi, Teta Kaban. I guess right. Except it will take a very long time if all of us have to come to the stage. Teta Kaban, Kulum, just talk. You want them to hear? Okay, you are welcome. Asikasebenzi. Long walk to freedom.
Yeah, thank you very much, Comrade Chair. My name is Derek Ngobeni, Bongi Mabunda Branch, Mopani Region, Limpopo Province. Comrade Chair, we do not agree with the program in its current form because of the following. One, in terms of the constitution of the ANC, the political report by the President, the organizational report by the Secretary General, and the Treasurer's report are reports presented at conference on behalf of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and all of them must be subjected to a discussion and ultimately ratification. That is the first issue. In the program as it stands, we are only allowed to seek for clarity on the organizational report. We are saying all the three reports must be subjected for a debate and ultimately adoption. That is what the Constitution of the ANC enjoins conference to do. It is not me. It is. You can quote the provision in the Constitution of the ANC. Secondly, Chair, there's an item on the messages of support. 2 hours. We do not know, and it's going to be plenary. I do not know who are the structures that are going to be given time to address plenary. We think we should know, and how much time are they being given, because it can't be an open-ended session where we're going to be given political report. A message of support must be a message of support, and we must know from now as to which are those structures that are going to be given that particular opportunity. That's why, Chair, I am suggesting and proposing that we should amend the program and adopt it consistent with the provision of the Constitution of the ANC. Otherwise, I would personally object on behalf of the province at whose pleasure I came here.
Well, comrades, it sounds to me like the province you are quoting is the one that is rising in opposition of your proposal. However, comrades, as a delegate, as a branch delegate, comrade, are you a branch delegate? Are you a branch delegate? No, I'm asking you a straight question. Are you a branch delegate? I'm not asking what other structure you sit on. You came in your capacity as a member of the PEC of Limpopo. All right. No, comrades, the issue will be given due consideration by the steering committee. And we will tell the conference whether we are able to accommodate the proposal of the comrades. Comrades, can we now move to the rules of procedure for the 2012 comrades, please. Comrades, can we now put to you the rules of procedure for the 2012 National Conference, the 53rd Conference of the African National Congress? They start from page 7. They include an extract from the ANC Constitution as adopted at the 52nd National Conference, which is the provision on discipline, which will then be applied accordingly in the conference as provided for in the Constitution. They go on to also, at the end, give us the Freedom Charter in case there's a need to refer to the Freedom Charter where there might be a need. These are the rules of procedure the National Executive Committee is submitting to conference for conference to adopt. May I have a motion for the adoption of the rules? Yes, comrade. When I always recap.
Thanks, Comrade Chair. I'm Johnson Lukeli from Limpopo, Sibulwani Muregu branch. I'm a branch delegate. I'm moving for the adoption of the program as stated.
Well, it looks like we can assume we're adopting the rules of procedure by acclamation. Now, comrades, can I highlight an area that for me is critical? And that comes to the rights of delegates to speak for 3 minutes. For 3 minutes, in order for us to allow as much time for different people to have the opportunity to make inputs here in this conference. So, comrades, the rules of procedure and the program having been adopted, sound here attendwa. The sound system is being attended to, but the next item that I would like to move to is okay with the sound system here on the stage. And therefore, while they are continuing to fix the sound system in the rest of the conference hall, it is now my great pleasure to call upon the 12th President of the African National Congress, Comrade Jacob Zuma, to come and deliver his political report.
This is our 53rd conference, but it is at the same time a celebration of 100 years. And I can see the mood to sing. Now, ndifuna uvuma ingoma endala. Ama-veterans azoyazi, abangazi bazongena phakathi. Abayaziyo bazawuyithatha kokuqala. Ethi inde le ndlela esihambayo. Washo uMandela wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Siphinda kabili nje inde le ndlela, siphinda kabili pha uMadiba. Bese iyahlangana. Abayaziyo bazayilandela, abanye balandele kubo. Ndiyacinga ubayaza abaninzi apha. Inde le ndlela esihambayo. Inde le ndlela esihambayo. Inde le ndlela esihambayo. Inde le ndlela esihambayo. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana nge-Freedom Day. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Washo uMandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sodibana nge-Freedom Day. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde indlela esihambayo. Inde yinde endlela esihambayo washumadela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana ngefika washumadela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sohlangana ngefika oyinde endlela esihambayo oyinde endlela esihambayo oyinde endlela esihambayo oyinde endlela esihambayo amandla awethu Thank you very much, comrades. National Chairperson, Comrade Balega Mbete, Deputy President, Comrade Khalima Muntlante, ANC officials, and members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, our alliance partners, and other representatives of the mass democratic movement, representatives of fraternal parties in Africa and the world, members of the diplomatic corps, and other observers who are with us today, traditional leaders and religious leaders, families of the former presidents of the ANC who are with us here, our veterans of the struggle, comrade delegates, comrades and friends. Comrade Chairperson, it is a great pleasure to welcome all delegates to this 53rd National Conference of the African National Congress, taking place at the birthplace of the ANC, Mangaung. Present here are 4,500 delegates representing thousands of branches located across the length and breadth of our country. The ANC has grown phenomenally since the last 3 conferences. In 2002, at the Stellenbosch conference, the membership stood at 416,846. In 2007, at the 52nd National Conference in Polokwane, the total membership was at 621,237 members. It has now grown to 1,220,000. These are audited members in good standing, thus meeting the directive of the 1942 conference that the ANC should have 1 million members. And these, and when we say audited, in other words, there's no member who has not paid his dues. If we say they're in good standing, There might be a lot that forgot to renew their cards or so. The ANC remains very popular with the masses of our people, not only to vote for it, but join it as members. We may be the only organization that is growing all the time, not just by few members, but many. Today, the 16th of December, is the day on which the ANC launched the People's Army Umkhonto weSizwe in 1961. In the free and democratic South Africa, we mark the 16th as the National Day of Reconciliation, a day of promoting unity, social cohesion, forgiveness, and a non-racial society. We salute all generations of MK, many of whom sacrificed their youth for the struggle for our liberation. We pay tribute in particular to Isitwalandwe, President Nelson Mandela, the first Commander-in-Chief of MK, who is currently hospitalized in Pretoria. He is receiving good care from a competent and caring medical team. We wish him and the family were all the best during this time. Comrades, we are coming to the end of our exciting centenary program. The Polokwane Conference mandated us to mobilize the vast majority of our people to take part fully in the ANC centenary celebrations. Working together with all structures, we carried out this mandate with great pride. We are proud to report to this conference that the centenary celebrations were a great success. They have left an indelible mark in the memories of the vast majority of our people here at home and abroad. The most important achievement of these celebrations was the realization of just how much the ANC is deeply rooted amongst the people of South Africa and what it means to them. These celebrations revealed to us that the ANC remains the only hope for the poor and marginalized. We saw those who were disillusioned becoming reinvigorated, re-energized, and reaffirming their support and pledging their participation in the ANC's cause for fundamental social transformation. We discovered that the ANC is way bigger than its membership figures. It is actually loved by many, many more people who stand for progressive change. We are truly proud of our movement. We meet, comrades, 5 years after that watershed conference in Polokwane. This 53rd conference is of great significance, occurring as it does at the beginning of the decisive second phase of our long transition from colonialism of a special type to national democratic society. The theme of conference, which is Unity in Action Towards Socio-Economic Freedom, launched us to press ahead with the task of radically transforming our society. Today, we reflect on the road traveled since 2007 in both organizational work and that of the ANC in government. The Polokwane Conference was unique in its own way. It reaffirmed the ANC as a strategic center of power to provide leadership to the state and society as a whole. In this context, one of the most tangible achievements was the reaffirmation that power lies with branches. Thus, emphasizing as well the need to capacitate the branches with resources so that they can function optimally. Polokwane also reaffirmed the Freedom Charter as a strategic document and charted the way forward for us to change the ANC and its government for the better. The road to Polokwane was full of divisions and turbulence. It was necessary, therefore, that we begin healing the organization and working for unity immediately after the conference. The leadership of the ANC crisscrossed the country, speaking to and working with structures of the movement. Some successes were made, while some provinces and regions still face pockets of factionalism and divisions. The renewal includes rebuilding ANC branches, the basic units of our movement. We need to ensure that branches are genuine and have genuine members. This means that our audit and verification of membership procedures should be improved so that only branches in good standing determine the policy and leadership direction of the organization. In some instances, some branches contain members who belong to other members. Other alien tendencies to be eliminated from the movement as part of renewal is a negative lobbying for positions, which includes smear campaigns in the media, as well as gossip and rumor mongering about one another. Also common are the disrespectful public spats, as well as hurling insults at other comrades or members of the public, thereby bringing the ANC into disrepute. More seriously, we have experienced the shocking occurrences where armed comrades disrupt ANC meetings. This then raises the question, what exactly could be so much at stake that people would go so far to get their own way in the organization? We condemn the use of violence and strongly condemn the killings of ANC leaders, including the ANC Dr. Kenneth Kaunda Regional Secretary in Northwest. Comrade Oputi Chika, that is the name. We condemn the killing of other comrades in other provinces as well earlier in the year. This bad tendency is creeping in. Comrades, we must also, from upon other alien practices, such as the use of money to buy the support of ANC members. We should not allow a situation where those who have money turn members of the ANC into commodities. Comrades, the ANC should also revisit this matter of people who take the ANC to court when they are unhappy with a particular decision. Some comrades do this even before exhausting internal processes of the organization. It is totally unacceptable. All these tendencies have been creeping into the movement gradually and need to be dealt with very strongly. The National General Council in 2010 drew the line on ill discipline. It said, and I quote, "The NEC in particular and all structures in general need to act with firmness, fairness, and consistent in the enforcing Rule 25 of the ANC Constitution. There should be no confusing signals and messages from the leadership on matters of discipline," unquote, said the NGC. Acting on the mandate of the NGC and informed by the Constitution of the ANC, the leadership dealt with some cases of ill discipline, and some members were expelled and others were suspended. The lapses in organizational discipline indicate that the incoming NEC would need to prioritize political education. There is no need to wait for a formal ANC political school building before we start political education. The renewal and rebuilding also applies to the languages of the ANC and indeed to the leagues that are in partnership with the ANC. Historically, both the Youth League and the Women's League have played an important role in the life of the African National Congress. Their role remains relevant and crucial. as we move into the second phase, in which we will focus on achieving meaningful socio-economic freedom. We had stated at the NGC and restate here that the leagues are structures of the ANC which are subject to the discipline of the ANC. We acknowledge the positive role played by the leagues, the Alliance, MKMVA, and SANCO in 2009 during the national general elections, and in 2011 local government elections. We scored a decisive victory in the elections due to the dedication and commitment to the campaign by the leagues and alliance partners. Comrades, President Oliver Tambo reminded us eloquently of the need for the unity of the ANC-led alliance a few years ago. He emphasized that it was, quote unquote, a living organism that has grown out of struggle. We worked together to bring about freedom, justice, and human rights during the struggle for liberation, and currently as we fight poverty, inequality, and unemployment together. We bring various strengths into the relationship. The SACP brings specific ideological input as a vanguard of the working class. The Progressive Federation, COSATU, stands solely and squarely for the interests of the workers. It is not a political party, while the ANC stands for the interests of the entire nation, irrespective of class or station in society. The relationship amongst components of the alliance needs to be handled with the greatest of care, because if we do not do so, we can polarize the alliance. Our disagreements need to be handled with the understanding that we are allies and not opponents, and that either COSATU nor the SACP are in opposition to the ANC. Thus, we reiterate that public space and shouting from podiums if one partner is unhappy with the other will do little to build or strengthen the alliance. Direct engagement, on the other hand, would yield results and strengthen the alliance that has a big task to do. We have the ways of handling our matters internally. And I want to make this point again, at least from the ANC point of view. Whenever we go for big kind of meetings, whether it's a national policy conference in particular, or NGC, when we discuss our policy, all the alliance partners are there. When we discuss programs, they are also there. So what we implement in government is a collective understanding of all of us. If there is a view that there is something we're not implementing correctly, We therefore have to come back and discuss it, rather than to look like we are joining the opposition. Conference will deliberate on various organizational renewal proposals, including the proposed declaration of the decade of the cadre. These recommendations are designed to strengthen the position of the ANC as a disciplined force of the left with a bias towards the poor and the working class, and also as a leader of society. I hope the conference will definitely take a very sober decision about the fact that this should be the year of a cadre. We are no longer fighting to liberate ourselves, where we had a very specific cadre who understood the task, who was prepared to die. We are now running government. We need a cadre who has that understanding, how to run government and succeed, how to change the quality of lives of our people. That cadre must be informed by the political understanding. Very important. So that the guidance is clear. It's not informed by any other interest. Informed by the interest to govern this country properly. You need a cadre who's politically clear. Because if you are not politically clear, you might think that to be part of government is an opportunity to enrich yourself. And yet that's not the issue. It will also include recommendations on how we should fight corruption and promote ethics and integrity within the ANC as well, instead of leaving action against corruption to government alone. We mustn't leave this action. We mustn't look away. We see that our cadre and government is said to be corrupt. We say, well, government fix it. And it belongs to our branches. I think we must have a role to play. Of course, conference will discuss that. We look forward to fruitful discussions on organizational renewal in the commissions where these matters will be gone into. Comrades and friends, the ANC-led alliance needs to revisit its understanding of the balance of forces currently in light of occurrences such as the tragedy of Mangaung, where 40 people died violently. The Mangaung Judicial Commission of Inquiry, led by Judge Ian Fallam, will assist us to establish the circumstances around the painful incident. We once again extend our deepest condolences to the families of all who died in Mangaung. At the time, the ANC met with the CEOs of the mining companies to discuss the living conditions of workers on the mines. That discussion continues. Government convened a presidential high-level dialogue on the economy to deal with the various socio-economic challenges in the mining towns. At a political level, the Mangaung tragedy exposed the organizational challenges we face both at the workplace and in the communities. strong shop floor organization, and strong ANC and the SACP, plus SANCO, in and around Marikana, would have identified and anticipated the challenges facing the workers and acted accordingly. The fact that we did not, it means we are not present there. That is an indictment I'm bringing forward. We need to avoid the danger of distance between leaders and members, both at the workplace and in the communities. Marikana also exposed the seemingly deep-rooted culture of violence and intimidation that still exists in our society. The Marikana tragedy served as a springboard for more wildcat strikes and protests, which were also marred by violence. These labor strikes were illegal, violent, and appeared designed to undermine collective bargaining in general, and the National Union of Mine Workers in particular. At a governance level, we need to reflect on the implementation of the mining charter, as mining companies should meet their obligations regarding the social and labor plans. We need to also reflect on the protests generally that have taken place in the country last year and the unacceptable violent nature thereof. It is important for the ANC to maintain ongoing contact with the masses at all times. We should explain to people when services are coming to them. And if there is going to be a delay, they also need to be told. We should engage our people more even on the question of unacceptable violence that accompanies some of the strikes and protests, which we condemn in the strongest terms. Thus, we must not lose sight of our political work, which is the lifeblood of political organizations. If we don't interact with people, don't talk to them, don't explain what is happening, then they take things differently or they make assumptions, and on the basis of the assumptions, they act. Comrades, the reason why the ANC is everywhere is because we must be in contact with people everywhere. They must know what are the challenges, what is that we are doing. We must not just end discussing among ourselves. We have discussed this issue before, that we need to understand the task of a branch. What is the branch supposed to do? Doesn't meet only when there are BGMs. It must meet to deal with the societal issues. That's a job of a branch. With regard to issues relating to governance, the state of the economy, in 2009, the fourth ANC administration took office and set out to implement the directives of Polokwane. The ANC government adopted 5 priorities, which were education, health, rural development, and land reform, the fight against crime, and creating decent work. The 2009 election manifesto, unpacking the resolutions of Polokwane, called for the reconfiguration of government to enhance delivery on the 5 priorities and general work of government. The manifesto said, the manifesto of the elections 1999, and I quote, will ensure a more effective government, improve the coordination and planning efforts of the developmental state by means of a planning entity to ensure faster change. A review of the structure of government will be undertaken to ensure effective service delivery, unquote. Indeed, the structure of government was reviewed. Some new departments were created and others were reshaped to enhance delivery. Departments that were reconfigured were the following: Department of Rural Development and Land Affairs, to enable us to put into action our goal of changing the face of rural areas through meaningful socio-economic development initiatives. We decided to split agriculture and land affairs and created a Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Forestry. The focus on agriculture was prioritized to better support the commercial and emerging sectors. Fisheries are a critical part of the limited natural resources base of the country and would require special focus, especially with regard to regulation and oversight. Housing was changed to human settlements, a paradigm shift towards transforming our cities and towns and building communities with closer access to work, social amenities, including sports and recreation facilities. Mineral resources, energy, and tourism were made standalone ministries and were no longer clubbed with others to enable focus. We split basic and higher education as we realized that basic education had been not receiving as much attention as it should have previously. The international relations and cooperation configuration refined the mandate of the former Department of Foreign Affairs to include peace efforts and developmental cooperation on the continent. A ministry was established to deal with issues relating to women, children, and persons with disabilities. The ANC government also laid the foundation for a more performance-oriented government in 2009 with the introduction of the Ministry of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation in the presidency. There is already evidence that these changes are bearing fruit. For the first time, ministers signed performance agreements with the president and with their colleagues with whom they work on aspects of their work, which has increased levels of accountability in government. Ministers are assessed quarterly on their work, while on-site visits are also undertaken around the country for hands-on monitoring. The monitoring of management practices is starting to bear fruit in a number of areas too. For an example, the average time taken to fill a funded vacancy in national and provincial departments improved from 9 months in 2010 to 4 months in 2012. The responsiveness of departments to cases referred to them from Chapter 9 institutions and from the National Anti-Corruption Hotline has improved. Compliance rates have improved regarding important issues such as finalizing performance agreements for heads of department and submission of financial disclosure forms by senior managers. Turnaround times have also improved in some areas of service delivery. For an example, the average time taken to issue an ID book has been reduced from about 150 days to about 30 days. The average time taken to process an application for a social grant decreased from 30 days in 2010 to 21 days in 2012. There has also been an improvement in the average time taken for police to respond to calls for assistance. However, there is still much room to improve in departments, particularly in areas such as payment of suppliers within 30 days. Comrades, another crucial establishment in the presidency referred to in the ANC manifesto is the National Planning Commission that the President launched in 2009. The NPC this year produced the reports, produced the country's groundbreaking National Development Plan, a major achievement for the fourth administration. The plan is comprehensive and covers a number of sectors. These include tackling the problems of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, infrastructure, education, and skills development, small business development, education, and the national health insurance. We now have a plan that has been welcomed by all sectors of society, and not just government and the ruling party alone. Comrades, when we took the decision on national development planning, we're very conscious of the fact that, firstly, the transition to a national democratic society will face complex challenges which cannot be addressed on an ad hoc fashion or solely left to the forces of the markets. We knew that the existence of a national planning mechanism will ensure that there is coherent program and strategic discipline within the state and hopefully eliminate silos. It is important to underline this point, comrades, because the coming into being of the national plan is absolutely an important development in the country. In many places, plans of this nature come from either government or from the ruling party. This has emerged from South Africans. That becomes very important. It was not worked on by government or the party. You had a commission that was out there, which was told they must be objective, they must be critical, because we want a plan for the country, not a plan for the party, but a plan for the country. And therefore, commissioners came from different disciplines, expertise and talent. And this was very important because for a country to have a plan that is embraced by everyone is absolutely important, because besides solving the problems in government, to working in silos and different departments, you actually make different levels of government, national, provincial, and local, to work towards one plan, to implement one plan. Even the private sector, in their own ways, as they are doing their own business, they must know where the country is going. So this is an important achievement of the country. But it means the African National Congress as a ruling party now that the plan is there, has to hold it in both hands. And therefore the commissions must discuss it fully, because it is important. It is important also with regard to the programs that we've come up with, because they must be part of the plan. There's nothing that must go in any other direction. Anything that we do must enhance the plan. We are given a responsibility to lead on that one. And therefore, we should discuss and pronounce at the end of this conference, what is our plan, about the national plan? As the ruling party, what is it and how is the government supposed to implement it? Absolutely important. We knew that the plan would help us a great deal. Fortunately, by the time the plan came, we had programs, clear programs, like the New Growth Path and many others. Ours is to discuss how these are married so that they produce this thing that everybody agrees to. Absolutely important when we discuss the economic aspects in our commissions. Also, our economy is integrated in the global economy, which often exposes us to turbulences and uncertainties, such as the present global economic crisis. In such conditions, it is easy to lose sight of our vision and strategic priorities in favor of short-term solutions. Having a national strategic vision as a country helps us stay on track. Thirdly, we must accept that the process of overcoming unemployment, poverty, and inequality, of building a national democratic society will be long and hard. It's not an overnight affair. It is for this reason that we should always make sure that our people, the motive forces, remain mobilized and focused around our national development vision. Otherwise, society may lose sense of direction. The long duration of our transition also means that our movement must consistently provide leadership to society and to the state. Having a long-term planning blueprint creates certainty about where we are going and how we intend to get there. Comrades, we look to the NDP and economic programs to help us resolve the impact of inequality, which remains deep and glaring as revealed in Census 2011 income levels. The income of the average white household remains 6 times that of the average African household. The average annual African household income is 60,613, and the white household income is at 365,164 rand, close to 1.9 million African households reported no income at all, indicating the challenges we face. Comrades, we discuss our economic development plans in the middle of a global economic crisis in Europe and the United States, our big exporter partners. The big emerging economies are also slowing down. The atmosphere is not too rosy. In addition, we had our country's credit rating downgraded by 2 rating agencies recently. We'll not delve into the reasons for downgrading, but we want to dismiss the perceptions that our country is falling apart because of the downgrades. We continue to do our development work. We continue to plan for a recovery. Today, the ratings agencies and investors are asking whether the ANC can continue to manage this economy so that we can grow and create jobs, manage our debt, and provide policy certainty. Yes, the ANC will continue to provide strong economic leadership and steer our economy boldly, and we do have a plan to grow the economy and create jobs. Central to that plan is our overarching national development plan, which clearly identifies our challenges, but also our opportunities to transform the economy and build a thriving developmental state. The destination we are heading towards is a mixed economy, where the state, private capital, cooperative, and other forms of social ownership complement each other in an integrated way to eliminate poverty and foster shared economic growth. Some of the instruments we are using within the NDP framework is our new growth path, which identifies the drivers of job creation. These are agriculture, infrastructure, agro-processing and rural development, mining and beneficiation, manufacturing, and green economy and tourism. We launched an ambitious infrastructure program which is gathering momentum every day. Large public investments in energy, ports, rail lines, and roads will help alleviate supply bottlenecks in the economy. The Presidential Infrastructure Coordination Commission adds a value to the National Development Plan in the manner in which it coordinates all infrastructure projects across municipalities, provinces, and national governments. Our industrial and trade policies are also active and well-resourced. These include the Industrial Policy Action Plan, the Manufacturing Competitiveness Program, and others, informed by Polokwane Economic Transformation Resolution on State-Owned Enterprises and Development Finance Institutions. We have begun the Reorient Development Finance Institutions such as the IDC to place jobs at the center of their mandate. We established the Presidential State-Owned Enterprise Review Committee, which undertook a study of state-owned enterprises, including the role of SOEs in a developmental state. Issues that were looked at included governance, ownership, oversight, establishment and disestablishment, management, remuneration, effectiveness and efficiency, funding, and viability. The report covers over 700 SOEs and public entities, including the regulatory framework. In addition, we are in the process of amending the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act and have also agreed to revise the points in the scorecards so that the prioritized local industrial development skills and small business development can be dealt with properly. Comrades, the Polokwane Economic Resolution calls for an economy that is integrated with the SADC region. Last year, South Africa hosted 26 heads of state and government, convened to launch talks on a free trade area stretching from Cape to Cairo and comprising of 600 million Africans. Major investments have also taken place in industrial and business activities on the continent by South Africans in the public and private sectors. Our focus is now on further industrialization of the continent to expand growth drivers beyond mining, oil, and agriculture. The massive growth in African consumption provides a source of demand for African factories. Comrades and friends, a particularly important part of ANC policies has been to emphasize the economic South in global affairs. This includes increasing South-South trade. These concerns were highlighted again in the Polokwane resolutions. I'm pleased to say that we are making solid progress. Last year, South Africa joined the BRICS grouping, which brings together China, Russia, India, and Brazil in a forum that meets annually at heads of state level and develops common positions on social, economic, and political issues. In 2013, we will host the first BRICS summit to be held on the African soil. These developments coincide with the significant expansion in our trade with the BRICS countries, and with the growth in the economic weight of BRICS in the global system. Comrades, global conditions might make our task and all these plans more difficult. However, the challenges we face, unemployment, poverty, and inequality, are South African in their origin and are deep and structural. This is why we have said that economic transformation is at the heart of the second phase of our transition from apartheid to a national democratic society. We need to accelerate growth and intensify our program of structural change. This program of change rests on the solid foundation of the ANC's vision. It is a vision that is clear and unambiguous. It builds on the Freedom Charter's clarion call that the people shall share in the South Africa's wealth. It is a vision of an equitable society in which there is decent work for all. We know that our most effective weapon in the campaign against poverty is the creation of decent work, and creating work requires faster and more inclusive economic growth. Accelerating growth and ensuring a more inclusive economy requires a radical improvement in the outcomes generated from the use of public resources. But the public sector, acting alone, cannot achieve the goal of a sustained acceleration in growth. Implementing this program will require that we unite all South Africans around our movement's vision. We must create a momentum for change that inspires all our people to put their shoulder to the wheel of common effort. As we accelerate growth along the path of change, we should draw in investment and investors, both internationally and South African. To support our program in the certainty that we will succeed in creating prosperity for all, Polokwane called on the ANC to take the lead in mobilizing and uniting all South Africans behind a common vision of economic transformation. The National Development Plan articulates a program. The critical task for Mangaung is to take this forward by creating a stronger sense of unity and purpose around the direction of economic change. Comrades, the ANC has a proud record of creating maximum unity among all social forces to meet the challenges that have faced it. Our people require the same spirit of united action from all ANC members, indeed from all South Africans that want our motherland to succeed in its great mission to create a better life for all. We will work with business, labor, the community sector, and other sectors to make these plans succeed. with single-minded determination, let us commit ourselves to transform our economy and society so that all our people can benefit from the fruits of a growing economy. Comrades, we continue to invest in achieving quality health care, water, sanitation, electricity, roads and housing, social grants and other necessities so that our children, especially the black majority, can have a better future than their parents and grandparents. In education, we have done well to expand access. More than 8 million children at primary and secondary schools benefit from school feeding schemes, and 9 million do not pay school fees. Grade R enrollments have doubled, while tertiary students benefit from the conversion of loans into bursaries. We are now investing more in improving basic education, especially annual national assessment program. The program is government's barometer of the performance of the education system. We initiated the honors as we wanted to see the real performance levels of the learners and intervene correctly and timeously, which we have done. The 2012 honor results are better than last year, except for the dismal grade 9 maths results. What I would like just to explain, comrades, because I think it is important for us to appreciate this. Ever since 1994, we had a problem because the matric results had a problem. Weak, lots of dropouts, etc., etc. I think the question to a democratic government was, what do you do with education? If you take into account the fact that we come from apartheid, where education was used as an instrument so that the majority of the people are not educated. But where is the problem? Why people, as they go up, they fall by wayside? Only few reach tertiary institutions. How to remedy this? That was one of the reasons we had to split the Department of Education, so that there is a clear focus on the basic education. In other words, at the foundation of our education. Because if the foundation is not firm, the house will never be firm. What then we have done is to try to diagnose the problem. And the ANA does that. And we have discovered what's the problem. That is why the results of those that were started last year are better this year. And we are certain we have hit the nail on the head on education, because it has to be dealt with at the foundation level. And we are very happy with these results, because we now know what is a problem with the patient. We have diagnosed it. We now are prescribing remedy. Some measures introduced by government already to improve school performance include the training of teachers and principals. It also includes improving the school environment through enforcing more discipline, hence the quality learning and teaching campaign. In this regard, let me repeat the call to all our teachers that they should be in school in class on time, teaching for 7 hours every school day next year. Now I know many disagree with me on this point. If they don't do it, we are going to force it. I want the inspectors to come back. That's my view. Comrades in education don't like it. They don't like it. But they must implement it as if they don't want it. If they don't, we are not going to say they are coming. They will just arrive and find a teacher not teaching. You know, we are building a nation. A nation is built at the youth. Correct? Now, these teachers who come with techies and t-shirts to school to teach, I call it nengane ifunda lokho izoba ixeleko. Education is a key thing to develop and build a nation, and we must pay attention. Absolutely, absolutely important. Particularly because any country that does not pay attention to education will never develop. Those countries that developed, they paid attention to education and therefore empowered their citizens. The delivery of textbooks must also improve. The failure to deliver books to grades 3, 6, and 9, and 10 this year in Limpopo is an occurrence that must not be repeated again. To improve the learning environment, there are currently more than 2,000 school refurbishment projects across the country, eliminating mud schools and other inappropriate structures. Crime statistics show a decrease in most crimes, including armed robberies, house breakings, and contact crimes. But we must work harder to reduce and ultimately eliminate crimes against women and children, which have not abated up to now. The campaign against corruption continues. Our country is one of the most transparent societies when it comes to the fight against corruption. It is talked about very often in the public domain, as there is a unified effort by all in society to build corruption-free society, to build a corruption-free South Africa. Government has established institutions that probe corruption, including the Special Investigating Unit and units within the SAP Service, Treasury, and other departments. We urge the public to continue assisting these units with information so that we can stop corruption in its tracks. One area of vulnerability in government is the tender system. This conference may wish to deliberate on tendering, which is often open to abuse currently. In fact, you should have said must, not may. I think this conference must deliberate on this issue. And we must take a clear decision. You know, if there are allegations held at the government or the ANC, it is on this issue of tenders. It is turning people you have known to something else. We must deal with it. You can't allow something that continues to be a problem just to continue. I think we should have a very clear resolution. What do we do with the tender system? We changed, there was a one which was there before. And sort of, because we are a very open society, allowed it to be everywhere, allowed everyone to take a decision. I think it is causing serious problems. Tender systems. Zaziwa ngisho isalukazi emakhaya. Sizazi, oh, amatenda. Amatenda phela. Comrades, another matter that is currently generating outrage in the country is the loss of 618 rhinos to rhino poaching in 2012, with 257 people having been arrested in relation to rhino poaching. The swift action of the numerous law enforcement agencies is commendable, as are the strict sentences imposed on those involved in rhino poaching and related crimes. Just last month, a stiff 40 years sentence was handed down to a Thai national. The South African National Defence Force has also returned to the 350-kilometer of national border in Kruger National Park and other country borders. We urge the communities living near borders and nature reserves to assist the campaign against rhino poaching. Let us save our rhino population from these ruthless poachers and criminals. Comrades and friends, with regards to healthcare, steady progress is being made in implementing the National Health Insurance Scheme with pilot projects in 10 districts. This scheme will enable all South Africans to receive quality health care, and not only those who can afford to be on medical aid schemes. Dramatic achievements have been scored in the fight against HIV and AIDS since the turnaround strategy was announced in 2009, leading to a rise in life expectancy. We have more people on treatment. We have reduced the rate of mother-to-child transmission of the virus by half, and over 20 million people have been tested for HIV voluntarily. Katlapeng, a joint venture initiative between government and a leading global pharmaceutical company, is at an advanced stage and will lead to bulk of our ARV supply being produced domestically at a lower cost. On land, Polokwane reaffirmed these important principles of the Freedom Charter when it resolved that we should change the patterns of land ownership through the redistribution of 30% of agricultural land before 2014. We are not likely to achieve the 2014 target due to a number of factors, such as the fundamental policy design flaws and inherent in the willing buyer, willing seller paradigm. The ANC government has developed a green paper on land reform, and proposals were made by the policy conference. This conference should produce a resolution that will take us forward in addressing the land question faster and within the ambit of the law. Comrade Chairperson, this 53rd conference must take youth development and empowerment to another level. The Polokwane Conference directed that we merge the Umsobomvu Youth Fund and the National Youth Commission into a youth development agency, and this was done. Beyond this, the ANC government has since 2009 pursued various programs for youth development located in a number of departments, some of which are very successful. Conference will deliberate on a number of measures, including proposals for youth employment. Comrades, the ANC government is steadily improving the position of women in public office and is moving towards 50-50 parity in the holding of leadership public positions. The National Policy Conference recommended the inclusion of more women in economic empowerment programs in the second phase of the transition, a matter that we trust will feature prominently in this conference. Comrades, the ANC's agenda in the international arena is based on its belief and commitment to progressive internationalism. During our liberation struggle as the ANC, it was the solidarity with our cause from the progressive forces internationally that assisted us to defeat apartheid. Our struggle as progressive forces of the globe is against political systems which undermine global governance and exploit the natural resources of the developing countries, in particular Africa. At Polokwane, we acknowledge the radical changes taking place in the world. We resolved to gather all progressive forces on the African continent. To this end, the ANC has successfully engaged with former liberation movements and consolidated our partnership agenda based on serving the poor in our region and the continent as a whole. With regards to international solidarity, the ANC hosted the Socialist International, and it became very clear that progressive movements need to play a more active role in shaping the direction of the Socialist International. As part of our centenary celebrations, we hosted an international solidarity conference where far-reaching resolutions were taken, including support for Palestine, Western Sahara, and the Cubans who continue to face an economic blockade. When assessing the balance of forces as they apply to Africa, we need sharpen our understanding of the role of anti-imperialist motive forces in the present world situation. This is even more crucial in the context of the global capitalist crisis. we should ask a few questions in this conference. Who are the motive forces of African revolution? What is the role and contribution that our revolution is making to the regeneration of Africa? This calls for stronger cooperation among liberation movements in the region to ensure that the gains of liberation and decolonization are not reversed. We also needed to be alive to lessons from North Africa, especially the aftermath of the political changes that took place there last year, referred to as the Arab Springs. We must analyze foreign interventions that bring about regime change, which leave the people leaderless and allow military formations and right-wing organizations to lead. Comrades, at the practical level, we have done well in implementing the resolutions on international work. With regards to African Union government, we anticipate progress since the election of Comrade Jacob Zuma as the new chairperson of the AU Commission. Meanwhile, our national chairperson, Comrade Balega Mbete, serves on the panel of the AU's African Peer Review Mechanism, APRMM. To take forward the African agenda, we have escalated our continental focus on infrastructure to the level of heads of state and government through a NEPAD committee of champions that we lead. On peace and security, we played an active role as member of the SADC Troika, the AU Peace and Security Council, and the United Nations Security Council. We are proud to have been among the 138 countries that voted in the UN General Assembly a few days ago in favor of Palestinian statehood bid. Comrades, a few international events that were helpful for the stature of the country were hosted in the last 5 years. South Africa successfully hosted the 2010 FIFA Soccer World Cup, the biggest sporting spectacle in the world. In the same year, we hosted the biggest meeting of young people from around the World Festival of Youth and Students. South Africa hosted successfully in 2011 the United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP17, and concluded the Durban Platform of Action. South Africa also hosted a number of conferences and meetings of the left during this term. These include the Communist and Workers' Parties Conference, the Socialist International, the World Federation of Trade Unions, and most recently, the International Solidarity Conference. Comrades, the future of our revolution and of our country is in our hands. And we must carry forward the work needed for the social and economic emancipation of our people. We need to prepare ourselves for this journey, starting today, towards socio-economic freedom for all our people. Comrade Chair, I now declare the 53rd National Conference open. Mandla! Away too. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, inde lendlela esihambayo, inde lendlela esihamba, inde lendlela esihambayo, inde lendlela esihamba. Washo Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sothi banange. Washo Mandela kubalandeli bakhe wathi sothi banange.
President Jacob Zuma delivering his political report, which I'm sure there are quite lots of talking points there. Prof, for you, very briefly, your overall sense of...
I think one of the most things that stood out most for me was his plea for the adoption, for this conference to embrace the National Development Plan, and his reassurances to the rating agencies that this is a mixed economy on our way to, there is a plan, there are policies, there is certainty around that, really trying to reassure people on that. And this really light years away from the dramatic turn to the left and much better, higher state intervention that we saw in Polokwane. So that's one of the most important things, I think. And generally, in terms of organization, we saw him make absolutely the correct noises, like in no violence, what are these campaigns? And one wonders what has happened, why he hadn't spoken about a few months ago, and even with more passion. And there is so much stock taking, the right boxes ticked, but the number of times that he said, we must, and compared with the number of times concrete things in place, that's quite visible.
Prof?
Well, he started off with the song In the Lendlela, the road is long, so was the speech.
In a way, sort of locating.
So was the speech. The speech was also long, but it's actually a very comprehensive speech. Virtually touching all the important areas in terms of the organization, government, international relations. He was a very relaxed person. It took his time. Some would have said it took too much time, but he did take his time to give this speech. The focus on what he calls alien tendencies in the ANC caught my eye, because he listed quite a number of so-called alien tendencies. Corruption, people who, branches which do not know what they are for, people who take the ANC to court. It's a whole list of things that are supposed to be alien tendencies. And I hope that some of them will be discussed at this conference.
Well, Prof. Maluleke, Prof. Boyson, thank you very much for being part of this broadcast. That's where, unfortunately, we're going to leave it for now. But remember, between 6:30 and 7:30 on SABC1, we'll be unpacking both the ANC President's political report as well as the Secretary General's organizational report. And that's on SABC1 between 6:30 and 7:30. Then at between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the evening, we will, of course, also be be bringing you the highlights of today, some of the salient points that we made here, but also with a bit of analysis from our panel as well. So until then, goodbye for now.
Thank you very much, comrades. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade President. Comrades, let's just also reassure you that this report, the political report of the President, has actually been in the process of being printed and will be circulated when we come back after lunch. Comrades, we will now adjourn for lunch, and I'd like to make some announcements in relation to that. Categories are people who eat halal, is people who are our guests, is people who are vegetarian, is veterans and stalwarts. There will be transport available to ferry these categories from and to the plenary. The halal, guests, vegetarians, veterans, and stalwarts. There is an announcement here from a person who doesn't write their name about isikhwama sakhe se-conference ngephutha esine-ID sicela asitholisele sishintshene ngephutha kuma-comrades ase-KZN ebusuku kade kurejistwa izindlu zokulala but akasho ukuthi ubani. But clearly there's a bag that's lost. Comrades, more announcements. Temporary toilets have been set up on the open space in the southeastern side between the catering marquees and the new education building. Secondly, delegates must take care because the ground around this area has muddy patches and is also uneven in some areas. More announcements on catering. Well, lunch is now. And for those that do not have meal vouchers, lunch will be provided only today. All delegates who have not received meal vouchers as yet must collect meal vouchers at the tea station round glass structure on the right of the entrance to the plenary. Tea and coffee stations will not be served today. Delegates will be notified once they have been operationalized. May I remind delegates that we are coming back to yet another open section where we will receive the Secretary's report, organizational report. Comrades, I should have said to you that the President has been very exemplary in the song he's been leading us in. And we would like to appeal to delegates that let us consciously manage the mood of conference by singing songs that all of us can be free to join in, like the song the President has been leading us in. So that we shouldn't feel tense. When someone starts a song, I should feel like I can join in. Comrades, let us break for lunch for an hour. We would like for us to try and come back as quickly as possible. Okay, comrades, please make sure we're all seated by 4 o'clock for the further open session. Lost and found car keys.
This one is to be.
Media, NGCO, Dumiso.
Even where they are, you bring it.